Hello, I am Gapwin, and we are here in Kerbal Space Program, Kerbal Fuel Crisis. If this is your first time tuning in, not turning in, or unless you're going to bed, this could be your first time ever turning into bed. Or something. I'm rambling. I apologize. It's early. I'm tired. I didn't get sleep. Anyway, if this is your first time turning into this series, this is a series in which the Kerbals have run out of rocket fuel. As you know, the Kerbal economy is entirely based on flying rockets, so this is a problem. In the last episode, we unfortunately had to leave the great and powerful Jebediah Curran at our drilling site. His aircraft was too full of kethane to be able to fly back home, and despite sending out a plane to empty it, I was greedy and I refilled it without thinking, and now he's still stuck there. So, this episode, we are primarily focused on the rescue mission. And I thought, what better way to stage a rescue of the great Jebediah Curran than to send out a blimp with Sam Cowell and Handeman Curran. Handeman? Yes, really. Sam Cowell and Handeman. Sam Cowell Curran may actually become a hero of this series, but more on him later. First off, let me say that this is using the Harlequin Labs mod and the B9 Aerospace mod and the other plane mod that I still can't remember the name of. I will write it down next time. I'll put it in the frickin' description. I'm sorry. But Harlequin Labs aviation blimp things have added these huge dirigible batteries. They call it the Death Star battery that I'm using on the sides of this ship. Why? Because it's the only thing they have that is streamlined and can lift a ship of this size. This was originally intended to be a huge mining and carrier vessel, but after some experimentation I discovered that that plan will not work. More on that in a little bit. Also, I wanted to show off this incredible cockpit. I forgot I was going to do this, so forgive the little jarring thing, but look at how awesome this cockpit is. If you haven't used B9 Aerospace, you really should just for this. Like, honestly, just for this one cockpit. I haven't looked at all their other ones, but look at the details in this. This is a working flight computer. You can click on the things and get data off of it. How cool is that? You can fly entire missions in here, and it looks like some sort of deep space trucker pilot thing. It just really, really awesome. Not all the buttons and switches do stuff, but the fact that they have a working flight computer inside this cockpit was amazing. Anyway, where was I? Blimps. This is an electric powered blimp. Alright, the propellers on the front are electric powered so that I don't have to bring a ton of fuel with me, because this thing moves so slowly that I could not put enough liquid fuel on it in order to get across, and also we're in the middle of a fuel crisis. So electric propellers all the way. And yes, while we are pretending we're not short on liquid fuel, we know that it's the next thing. After rocket fuel, what's the next thing you're going to run out of? It's going to be your liquid jet fuel. So, this thing, entirely electric, which unfortunately does mean that it's moving incredibly slowly because I cannot keep it all the way throttled up. See how fast it's going through my electric reserves. No matter how many generators and solar panels and whatever I put in this thing, those two propellers just suck through way too much energy. So, oh well. Also, Harlequin Labs. I believe I got sidetracked talking about the Harlequin Labs mod. They have implemented a lot of dirigible parts. These are two of the large ones. They also have some weather balloon type things, a couple of expandable balloon style parachutes, like Mars landing missions, etc. As you see, I'm about to not pay attention and run out of electricity here, which is unfortunate, but fortunately these engines are easy to take care of in that regard. Just turn them off, let them charge, turn them on again, take them up to a slightly lower setting. So if you're not familiar with the Harlequin Labs mod, very, very nice. This new buoyancy control panel over on the right side is what controls the entire thing. It lets you set it manually, which is a really bad idea. You'll wind up flying into space. Don't do that. Well, you can't fly too high in the atmosphere because these balloons are, of course, based on air displacement. It's just like floating in water, but in air. They are filled with something, don't know what, doesn't say, probably some kind of kethane derivative that is lighter than the atmosphere around it, causing this to try to rise up in the atmosphere to push it up after. But if you get into a thinner part of the atmosphere where there is less air to actually push on the craft, it's not going to go as well. So that is why this thing actually has an upper limit of the bottom part of the atmosphere. I got it up as high as I could, and That's really as far up as you can get it. And also with all of these electric bits on, it's as far as I can get it is about half throttle. So now we have skipped over an entire day of flying. You see that we've been in this thing for almost an hour. It is, so not an entire day. So while not an entire day, long enough for it to become nighttime. And that's going to be a theme. We have now been in the air for about 6 hours. Apologize, I had to read the screen there. Been in the air for about 6 hours, and we are finally getting over our target. As you can see, we have set Jebediah as our target right below us, that little pink thing that is now 12 kilometers away. And since we are approximately 11 kilometers in the air, that probably means we are about 1 kilometer from him on the ground. I didn't want to do the math. It's a big triangle thing. There's all that Pythagorean bollocks in there, but yeah, we'll just assume we're about a kilometer-ish away at this point. And now I have set it to descend at 2 meters a second. That's what's so nice about the buoyancy control. It gives you fine control. You can hover, or you can set how fast you want to raise or lower your craft. I'm really impressed with what Harlequin Labs did with this mod, and I'm going to be using another one in the future, so stay tuned for that. Playing with this mod a lot. Sounds really fun. This may be the last blimp that I use, because 6-hour flight to get here. Alright, that's worse than the stuff that I was doing on the island before. So, I also installed these nice B9 air brakes to keep the thing from flying back and forth while I was landing. And after another almost half-hour landing, oh good frickin' god, we finally make it down, and look at this beautiful, the B9 spotlights, floodlights, I think they're called spotlights in the thing. B9 floodlights light up cockpit, just drifting down next to Jebediah's craft. Imagine how thankful Jebediah must be. He has now been on this island for almost 3 days. Kerbal days. Kerbal days are very, very short, about 6 hours. So they planet rotation. But he has been on this planet for days, with nothing but the pack of cards that we left him with the supersonic transfer ship that we had in the last episode. So now Sam Cal and Hanman are here for the rescue, and I've never landed one of these blimps before, and it is so finicky. If you ever want to make blimps, pay incredibly close attention to your center of mass versus your center of lift, because this thing is so freaking finicky. So finicky. Makes me want to punch it. Just watching this again. Makes me want to punch it in the face. But we are here. And now, in the morning, we maneuver Jebediah's craft closer to our blimp. Now, the idea is to have the electromagnet that we put on the bottom of the blimp pick up Jebediah and his craft, thus bringing back both in one fell swoop, which I thought was a really cool plan. I hope you do too. So, Jebediah maneuvering in close. Now, we shall send Sam Kerman out on his adventure. Well, first thing I thought was, I don't need this electromagnet because I have the ports on the other ship. I can just plug it in. I can't take the electromagnet off. So, we're using the electromagnet. Isn't that amazing? So, Sam Kerman, maneuvering his way deftly off the ship, comes up to grab the electromagnet, which he will then place on Jebediah. Not Jebediah himself, on Jebediah's ship. So, this presents a bit of a problem because I neglected to put ladders on the Kethane Explorer. It was supposed to be a quick exploratory mission. What do they need a ladder for, I thought. So, kneeling down. Very nice kneeling action there. Now, Sam Cal, still unable to get aboard the ship, but I left all this in because it's fairly comical. Trying to jump up on the wing, getting his head stuck in the wing. Nothing is working for poor Sam Cal. So, we are going to have to move Jebediah once again, I think. Unable to roll the craft, unable to pitch the craft, unable to get those wings down at all, unfortunately. And the landing gear also broke. Not sure why exactly, but as you can see, the front landing gear is now trapped in the ground. This presented a minor problem. Nothing that was too bad. I believe it's because I had the engine running on the front wheels when I collapsed it, and then it caused some sort of clipping issue in the ground when I raised it again. So all I had to do was turn off the motor and then get the wheel up again. It hit the ground fine that time. Thankfully, that was not a deadly part of the mission. All this, and to lose Jebediah at this point would be terrible. So, since we cannot get Sam Cal up on the ship, I decided to have him climb the blimp and then jump off the blimp onto the ship. This is what we call outside of the box thinking. So, Sam Kell now hurrying up to the other side, watching how much the ship alarmingly sinks under time acceleration, and now we discover that the ladders do not work. I don't know why. I believe the top ladder may be just slightly too low. That's something I need to adjust, but regardless, Sam Kell cannot get back on top of his ship. Thankfully, there is a second pilot, so Sam Kell is not the only one who can fly the dirigible. We also have Handman Kerman. I would have to look again. So, Jebediah maneuvers his ship underneath the ladder so that Sam Kell can get on the wing and try to get to the middle of the ship. But Sam Kell cannot get to the middle of the ship because he's a clumsy little Kerbal. So after quite a bit of amusing spastic jumping at 4 times acceleration, we just manually attach the magnet to the middle of the ship, which we should have done anyway. Now, just hoping against hope that Sam Kell can somehow jump his way back onto this ship, try the ladder again, but it's not going to happen. Poor Sam Kell is going to be marooned. We have sacrificed Sam Kell for Jebediah, which, I don't know. He'll just have to wait. He will just have to wait. Jebediah is so much more important. So now, Handman Kerman going back on this long journey all alone. Poor Sam Kell Kerman is going to be just left behind, but I feel more sorry for Handman Kerman, honestly, because Sam Kell gets to explore this new land. He's never been here before, these wonderful flat kethane fields, but Handman has to make this mind-numbingly dull Germany's not mind-numbingly dull. I've never been, but I assume. Now has to make this mind-numbingly dull journey all the way back. And you see that the ship is now sinking, because apparently, as great as Harlequin Labs is, they have not accounted for a Kerbal attachment system, and why would they? So, you have to, if you are making a carrier blimp like this one, you have to manually adjust your meters per second up to cancel out how fast your cargo is pulling you down. Just a nice little tip for you all. I managed to do that. Also a nice little tip for you all, you cannot time accelerate at all with this configuration. Keep that in mind as you watch the next section, because this blimp takes quite a while to get back, because the Jebediah is really slowing it down. Thankfully, electric engines, so we do not have to worry about running out of fuel. We just have to let this blimp return home as quickly as we can, which is not very quickly at all. So, next, I just wanted to show you this amazing site that I found. This is more or less midway back, 15 hours into the total mission. We left after about 9 hours into the mission. And as you can see, this small blue dot next to the ship is in fact Minimus. You can see it, I moved it over to the left side, yes, over to the left side of the screen so you can see. Small blue dot is in fact Minimus. One of the first times I've seen that in the game. From Kerbin, anyway. I've been to Minimus, but this is one of the first times I've seen it from the end. Now, we have finally made it back to the Kerbal Space Center. And what a long flight. We left 9 hours into the mission. It is now 20 hours into the mission, almost 21 hours into the mission. That is a long mission. And keep in mind, I could not time accelerate during this period. Alright, I'm just complaining at you at this point. You don't need to know this, but I had to leave the game running in the background for almost an entire day to get this footage. So I really hope you appreciate it. And I know at least one person was very, very hopeful that I would rescue poor Jebediah. So this is how we brought Jebediah home. I hope you appreciate the sacrifices I have made, not any of my Kerbals, me. The sacrifices I made sitting around for a whole day keeping an eye on this bloody thing while it ran in the background to bring Jebediah home. That is how committed I am to bringing back Jebediah. So just keep that in mind, okay? Keep that in mind as you're watching this landing that I can't think of much to say about, which is why I'm rambling about something else. Keep in mind how committed that I was, personally, to bringing Jebediah home safely. Alright, anyway. Weirdly enough, to land this thing, I just had to turn it back to hover mode, because Jebediah's ship... Oh, look at him clapping. Jebediah's happy to be back. Jebediah's ship was heavy enough that it drags the blimp down with it. So all I had to do was put it in hover mode, turn on the air brakes to try to alleviate some of the drift, which the drift was the hardest thing. I actually had to manually switch these propellers. These propellers can turn from forward to backward, which is very interesting, very odd for propellers, as far as I know. I do not myself fly, but I've never heard of a propeller aircraft that does that. I don't think they usually have a reverse. But next time I make a propeller aircraft, I'm going to hotkey that, because I forgot to hotkey it, and I had to keep clicking to change it. Every time I wanted to change it, slowed me down quite a bit. But able to turn the propellers onto reverse, which is very nice for a dirigible, and arrest as much of my forward momentum as possible, because I did not want to land and drag poor Jebediah's aircraft over the ground while I was trying to get him down safely. Now, this electromagnet, very interesting doohickey, I like it, but it apparently can't allow you to dock if you do it better than this. I did not. So instead we have to precariously lower Jebediah down, hanging underneath of this huge blimp above him, and lowering down very, very slowly. Oh, and it occurs to me, I never told you why I didn't bring any kethane back in this thing. So apparently, kethane and blimps don't play well together, and every time I put any kethane in this thing, it would spontaneously explode. I'll have some footage of that for you at the end. But every time I did a test of this thing with kethane in it, it blew up. So that's why it's a rescue craft now. And the rescue craft has finally secured Jebediah. He is back home. He is safe. He is on the ground. Nothing else can go wrong now. Even if this crashes, we are not repeating this. We are just going to let Jebediah be on the ground, and poor Hammond Kerman will have to die if this blimp does not get back safely. So I wanted to land this thing close to the runway, because that is a very nice flat piece of ground to land the blimp on. Probably not as important since it's got the landing legs, not the wheels. It's not going to roll around, but I wanted to land it relatively smooth surface to try to avoid the explosions that you can get with blimps, with the humanity, or the Kerbalanity or something. Thankfully, we did not wind up with that sort of situation. Down safely, turn off all of the buoyancy, shut down the propellers, and there we go. Now, did you think that was it? Did you think we'd just rescue Jebediah and leave? No, we still have a Kerbal stranded out in the kethane fields. But you know what? The kethane fields are going to become a mobile base. Not mobile, really. It's going to become a permanent base. We are going to build a secondary area over there for mining and producing fuel, and perhaps even a secondary space center. There is no fuel at this space center, so maybe we'll just move the whole thing over there. And this is the first step in doing that. Poor Sam Kell has had to sit there for over 9 hours while we brought Jebediah home in that blimp. Oh, of course he gets some habitation. So here's my weird, spidery, bow-leggedy aircraft that I'm going to use to bring over the habitation. And it worked very well. Despite being somewhat unstable, it got over there in under an hour of flight time. Very, very nice. Quite stable on landing and takeoff, just very unstable while flying with that weight underneath it. So might have to fiddle around with that, but so far a very successful test of our first weirdo spider carrier. And even though I botched the landing completely and hugely overshoot poor Sam Kerman, who I realize I probably have been saying the name wrong of, and it's going to be embarrassing when we meet him later on. I'm terrible with names, even made-up Kerbal names. Maybe especially made-up Kerbal names, I don't know. But even though I completely botched the landing, landed a good, 4 or 5 kilometers away from Sam Kell. Okay, only about a kilometer. But still, landing about a kilometer. But we are on a hill. I love this valley, alright? I have a love-hate relationship with this valley because it makes it very hard for aircraft to take off. But it makes it so easy to land base components, because even... Ooh, and there's that bounce. That bounce scared the niche out of me. Scared the Kerbalness out of me. Just real, ugh. But anyway, we're building the base at the bottom of this giant bowl valley. And, flying right over the head of Sam Kerman there. And, because it's in a giant bowl, no matter where you land, if you just let your aircraft roll back, it's in the bottom again. So, very convenient, I found. Means you don't have to be particularly good at landing. So now we have dropped the habitation unit that we have brought here, filled with food and cards and hopefully some video games or something, while we bring some more people over here for poor Sam Kell to talk with. Maybe he's got KSP in that thing. Who knows? Now that would be fun. They should make a thing where you can play KSP in KSP. If you get into one of these things, you can play it on a little screen so they won't get bored. Pay attention, devs. I'm giving you gold. Giving you gold! I know that would double the computational use of the game, but so what? So, solar panels, even though probably not necessary. Thing doesn't take power, but it's got attachments. That's going to be one of the solar collectors / habitation units for the base. We're going to connect the whole thing together with attachment system later on. And now I was very worried about taking this thing off again, but look how beautifully it goes up. I think it's because I have those very, very long, very sturdy struts in the bottom instead of just the flimsy little landing gear. And after a completely non-eventful flight home, in which the thing was completely stable and I was able to just put it on more or less autopilot the entire way, we are finally back at Kerbal Space Center. So, this was a very, very productive couple days. We rescued Jebediah. We discovered that our blimp aircraft thingy doesn't work at all, so we're going to have to find another way to transport kethane or set up a mobile base. And we have successfully built and tested a carrier craft, a very small, fast, efficient carrier craft. None of those huge frickin' things I was experimenting with earlier that you didn't see. So I don't know why I mentioned them, actually. But anyway, tested out our carrier craft, rescued Jebediah, got the first bit of our base up. This series is finally getting off the ground. It's exciting. Aren't you excited? I can feel it. I can see it. I can almost see it in your faces as you watch this, how excited you are for the next part of Kerbal Fuel Crisis. Stay tuned for more. I am Gepwin. Thank you for watching. And just so you know, as often, probably not always, if I start getting better, but as often, stay tuned for bloopers.